Hello YouTube. For this video I wanted to do something a little different. No reloading or working on guns today. I wanted to show you my Com Block and Cold War 9x18 handgun collection. So I'm going to start with the Czech CZ82. I have two of them here, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of my experience with each one and then do just a little bit of the history on each one. So as far as the history goes, the CZ82 replaced the VZ52, which was in 7.62 Makarov. Replaced that handgun in 1983. It was the first military pistol to have both an ambidextrous mag release and ambidextrous safety. And that same reason allowed it to become a curio and relic firearm in 2007 when a museum curator wrote the ATF and said that this firearm has a historical significance, because otherwise they aren't old enough to be curio and relic. So I have two of these. This gun also has polygonal rifling, kind of like a Glock, but even more pronounced, or less pronounced, I guess you could say. When you look down the chamber or the bore of one of these, I won't be able to get it on film, but it looks like they're shot out. It looks like they have basically no rifling, and if you get it in the perfect light, you can see tiny little, basically hills in the rifling. It's just very subtle, but it sure does work. And apparently that's supposed to help with cleaning, help get the most velocity out of the cartridge as possible. And it seems to work. I've shot lead reloads in these and I haven't had any issues. They, unlike the other 9x18 guns, this holds 12 rounds, which is pretty nice. And when I first bought one of these, a CZ82, I think it was this one, was my first surplus handgun purchase ever back in 2012. And I actually carried this gun for about a year and a half, which is why there's skateboard tape on it, which is totally reversible, by the way. But back then I wasn't as much of a purist as I am now, and I actually refinished the slides on each of these, which I kind of regret now, because I'm more of the leave it alone type of guy. On this one I stripped it down. These have an enamel type of finish on it, and they flake off pretty easily. Most of the ones you see will have chipped off paint, and it was really bad on both of these, so I wire wheeled all that off, and there's parkerization underneath. And on this one I used black high temp engine enamel and I baked it on. You can see it's starting to chip some there, but otherwise it looks basically like the original finish. And on this one I stripped it all the way down and cold blued it, which is actually holding up pretty well. I'm a big fan of these. They're fun to shoot. They feel great in the hand. The controls are nice. The triggers are nice. The double action is real smooth. The single action is pretty nice. A little mushy. But they're great handguns. Typical Czech quality. The finish is the big thing on these that kind of detracts some people from them, because almost every one you find will be chipped, especially from billboard type import marks like this. When they put that on there, the paint chips off there and then it just starts to chip out everywhere as you use it. So a lot of them would be dang near perfect if they would be like this importer and put the import mark on the underside of the slide, although this did start to chip it down there when I first got it in. But that's how you do an import mark, not right on the slide. That drives me nuts. So that's basically it on the CZ82. These are real fun to shoot. The extra capacity is nice. They can be used as a carry gun, although I'm more inclined to try to keep these original these days and not abuse them. But they were gone from the market for several years where you hardly saw them at all, and recently more have popped up. The first one I purchased here, I got it with 2 mags, a holster, and a magazine, leather magazine pouch. I paid $1.99 out the door for it. This one I got from Southern Ohio Gun, and I think I paid about $2.50 for it. And the ones that are for sale right now, I've seen them around $2.80 or so. So I think that's a pretty good deal when you're seeing the same prices as back in 2012, 2013 or so. So I would definitely grab one of these before they're gone. I think they're going to be worth a lot years down the road, and they're great guns, fun to shoot. And that's it for the CZ82. Okay, next up we have the Bulgarian Makarov, and that probably sounds a little funny to you. You're probably used to hearing Makarov, but apparently the correct pronunciation is Makarov. So these are basically a copy of the Russian Makarov PM, which replaced the Tokarev in 1951 in Soviet Union. These started production in Bulgaria around 1970, and it looks like they were made until about 2000. They made a few that year. This one here is completely unissued and comes with the logbook. It's still in all the original grease. They have a 8-round magazine. This one here was made in 1982, and this is the one I actually shoot. They're both in great condition. Unfortunately, you get the billboard import mark here, but they still look real nice. These feel pretty good in the hand. They're not as ergonomic as the CZ82. They have a pretty good single action trigger. The double action's heavy but smooth. They do have a decocker. I didn't mention the CZ82 does not, so you have to manually lower the hammer on the CZ82. And this also disengages the trigger, so you can't pull it when that is up. These are really handy. They're extremely tough and reliable. They beat out all the other guns they were tested against by a huge margin because they're just built like tanks. They're good looking guns. Pretty durable finish. The Bulgarians are said to be close to the same quality as the Russians, if not equal. I've never had any problems with them. They look really nice, and they are pretty abundant right now, and I would definitely suggest picking one up. They're a good deal. They're going to disappear. No more are being made, and if you can afford it, I think it's a good idea to buy one, because down the road when they're worth way more, you might regret not doing it. We can check through this logbook here. I don't know what any of this means, of course, but it is pretty neat. It looks like maybe it was taken out of service in 2002, but I'm not sure. And there's not much in the book. Probably just times where they took it out of storage and inspected it, and that's about it. But this was a real neat buy to come with the book and be totally unissued. I forget how much I paid for that, but I bought both of these from Southern Ohio Gun. I love that place. They actually just closed their doors on December 7th, which is a real bummer. Not many people seem to order from them, but they had the most honest descriptions and hand select that I've ever seen. I've bought around 50 firearms from them, and only one time was I unhappy, and that was because there was a crack on a handguard on a Yugoslavian M48 Mauser, and I paid hand select, and it was something they just overlooked. But otherwise, they did a much better job than Classic in their hand select, which was only $10. And their descriptions were conservative. Like something like this, they would probably list as very good, and this is easily excellent. And there's not a scratch on this thing. So that's about all I know to say about the Bulgarian Makarov. So we'll see what is next. I forgot to mention on the Bulgarian model, they have a heel magazine release, whereas the CZ82 has a regular thumb style release. And all the Makarov PM clones or copies have that heel release. Okay, next up we have the Polish P64. This replaced the TT33 7.62 Tokarev pistol in Poland in around 1964. It was in production from 1964 to 1977, and sources say a total of 190,000 were made. These are really common surplus handguns, pretty easy to find and very affordable. I see them as low as $170 on sale. I just got this one recently from Classic for $199. It may not look that great on video, the light kinda makes it look worse than it is, but this is in really good shape. Unfortunately, a huge billboard import mark. These hold 6 rounds. They have a really nice single action, but the double action is ridiculously hard, which can be mitigated by putting a Wolf mainspring in, which is pretty easy to do, and that's something that I did on my last one and I will do on this one. Has a decocker, which disengages the trigger, and very tiny sights. These were made as kind of an officer's gun, not a primary sidearm really. They're super handy, they're easy to carry. I actually carry these every once in a while. They're heavy and they kick. I mean, the recoil on these is pretty stout. I would also suggest putting the heaviest Wolf mainspring in that you can, or recoil spring in that you can buy. These are actually quite accurate. I have shot them off the bench, off of a pad, and they have outshot modern handguns at times. Even with those tiny sights and that short barrel, they're just really well made. Typical Polish quality, which is always very good from what I have seen. These were made at the Radom plant. This was made in 1967, and that's the Circle 11 plant. You'll often see the plum colored parts on pretty much all of these guns. Not the CZ82, but the different types of Makarovs, and these often have a plum part or two. The rumors say that's from inappropriate temperatures during the bluing process. I don't know. They did have a different style hammer on some of them. I didn't go through the takedown on these, but on the Makarov and this, you have to pull the trigger guard down, make it catch to one side or the other. Then you just pull back and up, and the slide pops off. Really easy. On the CZ82, instead of a spring-loaded deal, this will pop and it'll hold in place. And so you can do it without that accidentally popping back in and messing you up. It's pretty handy. The CZ82 is just way more advanced than all these other guns. They really did a good job with that one. The Czechs kind of went off the rails with their VZ52 handgun, but they learned from it and they really excelled when they made the CZ82. So these are really handy. They're extremely affordable. They're curio and relic. I strongly suggest buying one. You'll be glad you did. They're fun to shoot. They'll be worth more eventually. They're going to disappear and go up in price just like everything else has. So definitely check these out. On to the next one. While we are on the subject of Poland, this is the Polish P83. These were also made in the Radom plant. I apologize if I'm not saying that correctly, but the Circle 11 plant. This one was made in 1988 and looks nearly unissued. I'm not sure if it was ever fired. Looking at the internals, it doesn't look like it was. This was made in 1988 also. These are very similar to the Makarov, but they did some interesting things when they made these. These are almost all made out of stamped metal. This part here in the front, I believe, is machined. The barrel's machined. Some of the small parts are machined, but the slide is sheet metal. The slide stop is sheet metal. The frame is sheet metal. It was a really neat idea, and they feel solid. They shoot great. There's nothing wrong with them, but that really saved them a lot of money. The sights are pretty nice on these. I'm not sure when that was painted or if it came that way originally. I'm not sure. These are still used some in the Polish military. Mostly they have been replaced by high capacity polymer frame pistols such as the Glock, but they do still get used, and so does the P64. Uses an 8-round magazine that looks very similar to a Makarov magazine, but they do not interchange. One of the neat things they did about this is instead of pulling the trigger guard down, they have that disassembly catch there. You just pull that down and do the normal up and over and you're done. Sorry. There we go. And then you just push that back up. I have a nice slide stop that's really easy to reach and get to. The single action trigger is quite nice, and also the double action. It's pretty smooth, pretty even all the way through, and it's a little shorter than most of these. Kind of a weird hammer, but it's really easy to cock. One thing I didn't mention that I want to, on the P64, if you're going to carry this, you need to do it with the trigger disengaged, because there's no firing pin block on these, and people have shot themselves with these. And what happens is, if you catch that hammer on something, like your pant leg or your holster, it's going to fire. There's not much else to say on these. They're very nice. I haven't seen them recently for sale. They came in 3 or 4 years ago. They were real common. I got both of these from Southern Ohio Gun. These are not curio and relic, unfortunately. They should be, due to their stamped sheet metal design. I think that's a innovative deal that they could probably convince the ATF to make these curio and relic if a museum curator would request it. So that's it on the Polish P83. Okay, next up we have the Hungarian FEG PA63. This is very similar to the Walther PPK. It has an alloy frame, so it is a good bit lighter. I'm sorry I didn't weigh them, but I would say this might be even lighter than the P64, yet it's larger and it holds 7 rounds, whereas the P64 only holds 6. It has a decocker. I really like this gun. Has a very nice double action, really nice single action. I believe I replaced the mainspring in this, and on all my 9x18 guns I put the heaviest recoil spring in them that Wolf makes, because the brass flies really far from all of these, and since I reload I want to be able to find my brass, and it also cuts down on the recoil. This is a very accurate gun. It's really fun to shoot, but it has a lot of recoil due to the lightweight, and this really digs in to you when it recoils, and it'll kind of make you sore there. The grips are really ergonomic. It has a thumb magazine release instead of the European style catch like the P64 and all the others I've shown you, except for the CZ82. So this one is kind of innovative. Nice to have the regular mag release. You can't reach it, at least I can't, but it's still faster than having to reach up and use a heel catch. It has the same kind of disassembly as the others where you have to pull that down and hold it to the side. Ignore this, that's something I put on there, and it is reversible, it's not permanent. I actually carried this gun for quite a while. It's a really handy little gun. It's good looking. The bluing is real nice. Some of these you'll see with a painted frame, but this is some kind of aluminum alloy, so none of the frames are going to be blued actually. They also made this in .32 caliber, which I do have also, and that one's really fun to shoot. Hardly any recoil. Very accurate, nice trigger. All the guns I have that were made at FEG are very nice. I have a high power clone that was made there as well, and it's just perfect. So I would definitely suggest picking one of these up. They are not Curio and Relic, unfortunately. These were used by Hungarian military and police forces. I have heard online that they are still in use in some places in Hungary. Just a good looking little gun, nice thumb rest there. If you're left-handed, that's not going to be too nice, but it's really easy to find a replacement left grip for these that is flat. And that's about it for that one. This is one of my favorite ones to shoot, but it does recoil pretty hard. Okay, next up we have a Russian Makarov commercial model. They called this the IJ70. This is not Curio and Relic. The military Russian Makarovs are, but these are not. These were made later for export purposes. The ATF decided that these did not meet their import requirements, so they were forced to mill out the slide and put a target sight on, which I'll show you later. This is a replacement of the target sight, and it's just a fixed sight. It's pretty nice, but it's really unfortunate that they had to mill into the slides on these. This one is in excellent shape, hardly used at all. I have the original box, as you can see. These are imported by Big Bear years ago. Came with a holster and an extra magazine. These hold 8 rounds. This is, an exact copy of the original Makarov. Here is the parts for the target sight that the ATF required. And these are kind of finicky, so people usually take them off and put one of these on. There used to be a site, Makarov.com. It may still be active, but they used to sell parts for these. Came with a little tool there. This takes down the same as the others where you pull the trigger guard down. Came with a manual. Nothing too special. But this one is kind of special to me just because I got the box with it. It was one of my early guns that I purchased. So I pretty much keep it in the safe, even though it's really not worth all that much since these were pretty common. Not much more to say about that, but it's nice to have an actual Russian because I do not have a Russian military model. Okay, up next is the pride of my 9x18 collection, and this is a East German Makarov. These are curio and relic. This one has a tiny coal distributing import mark right here. You may not even be able to see it, but it's stamped right there. You can kind of see. This has grease on it. I do not shoot this one very often, so I keep it pretty well greased up. These were made from 1958 to 1965, I believe. This one was made in 1962, which you can tell from that right there, as well as the BW. If you look up the codes, that means 1962. These are an exact copy of the original Makarov, same 8-round magazine. These are said by many to be the most well-made of all the Makarov PMs, and I believe it. The fit and finish on these are great. I got this one from Empire Arms, really good guy. I think I paid $4.50 for this, and I don't regret that one bit. These are not as common, and they're going to definitely go up in value quite a bit. The machine work on it is excellent. You know, typical German fashion. The bluing is excellent. You can also see a plum colored decocker there. Very nice. Nice trigger. Very smooth, very smooth. I mean, this is, when you operate this, you can really tell that it is a world above the Bulgarian and even the Russian commercial that I have. So this is the one I'm most proud of here. Probably be the one I would keep if I had to get rid of all of them. And that is it for my 9x18 collection. I have quite a few Comblock Cold War type pistols, and I think I'm going to come back with a 7.62 Tokarev video and show you all the handguns I have in that caliber. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will talk to you later.